Namaskar. Hello and welcome to P Guru's channel. I'm your host Riya here. Joining me today is Kalavai Venkat as we look at the $10 billion deal that Qatar wants to do with India. They want to invest in India. Is this a double-edged sword or is there any positives to it? What are the negatives? How should India play this? All this and more. Let's welcome Kalavai Venkat ji. Kalavai ji, namaskar and welcome to P Guru's channel. How are you?
Thank you very much. I'm doing very well. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Venkatji, we haven't talked about, I think, a couple of weeks' time. I'd be curious to know about you. You are very knowledgeable about, how all these things happen in Middle East. Qatar, for the longest time, has been hedging its bets with everybody. This is a known fact. There is nothing new. So for India to, even consider accepting a donation or not donation, an investment from them, what are the pluses and minuses and how do you see this thing play out?
I think the first thing is I suspect that Prime Minister Modi should send a thank you note to the Iranians because Trump froze by various accounts anywhere between $6 and $11 billion of Iranian money, which had been parked in Qatar. So that money has been sitting in Qatar, and Trump has frozen that amount. The Iranians are not getting it because until their nuclear program is taken off the grid, Trump is not going to release that money. He has made it absolutely clear. So I'm suspecting, in a way, since Qatar has agreed to invest $10 billion in India, I'm wondering whether this is Iranian money that Trump has taken and gifted it to India. If so, a thank you note from Prime Minister Modi, either to the Iranians or better, directly to President Trump, saying thanks for the $10 billion gift. Okay, so, but jokes apart, jokes apart. On a serious note, I think, uh, like you said, this is a double-edged sword, right? So Qatar has been uh, playing a double game for a long time. It has been a sponsor of terrorism. All the Hamas leaders were based out of Qatar, and then even though nobody is openly admitting or openly talking about that, a lot of the training and even the approval for the 10/7 attacks on Israel were all hatched in Iran and Qatar was definitely in the know of it. Okay, so in a way, Qatar has been playing a double game. On the one hand, it wants to be part of the Western alliance, the America-led alliance, and make money out of that and make investments, etc., and sell oil. Then on the other side, it also wants to play the terrorism card. Doesn't work that way. The way I am seeing it right now is that everybody has realized that with a new sheriff in town, with Trump taking over, they cannot afford to play this game anymore because earlier Biden was the alleged president of America, but I think it was Obama who was running the show from behind, and they were extremely lenient towards terrorism. Trump is not. So one thing I'm seeing is the way this has panned out. Contrast this with what happened during the Nupur Sharma controversy. At that time, Qatar was flexing muscles. It said, we will not tolerate this kind of insult on Prophet Muhammad and all these things. But now they are investing money. So the way I'm seeing it is they are falling in line with Trump's diktats, and they know that they have to become part of the overall trade network. And that's why they are investing. And in a way, it's a good thing because one of Trump's pretty explicitly stated goals is to reinvigorate the India, Middle East, Europe trade corridor, right? And that's the reason Trump is trying to bring Russia back into G8. It used to be G8, and the remaining seven, they suspended Russia after the Ukraine invasions or the Ukraine war, and it became G7. So Trump wants to make it G8 again. And when you put all these pieces together, Shreya, the way I'm seeing it is Trump wants to get rid of war. That's a known to everyone. He's the only American president in the last 30, 40 years, 50 years who did not start a new war after Carter. Okay. So he wants to, on the other hand, focus on investments, trade, and wealth generation for everyone. And what better way than to build the India, Middle East, Europe corridor? Because America wants to export its products, including oil and natural gas from the United States. Then it is also working with Ukraine to get 50% royalty on all the minerals that are exported out of Ukraine. And when all these things happen, the Middle East corridor is going to become very important for Trump to drive his trade. And I think the way I'm seeing it is Qatar is falling in line. What other option do they have? Because if Trump could freeze the funds of Russia, or Russia was done by Biden, but if Trump could freeze the funds of Iran, he could pretty much do that for anyone. Okay. And Qatar knows that. And if they don't fall in line, then they will fall out of favor with Trump. And I think in that way they are falling in line. But at the same time, India has to be absolutely careful because all these countries earlier, before MBS took over the reign uh, de facto, uh, Saudi Arabia used to fund most of the Wahhabi initiatives in India. And in the last few years, Qatar has been doing a lot of that. And Qatar would try to stoke some of those things, especially when India, if at all, okay, it gets to the point of deporting all the Bangladeshi and Rohingya illegal Muslims who have invaded India. I I would presume that at that time Qatar would try to stir the honestness. So that's why I think it's very imperative for India to align itself with Trump so that all of these uh, loose cannons don't keep bouncing around. That's my initial
Thank you
thought
so
going
much.
in.
Thank you so much. I have a few first observations. Viewers, just for your record, India gets 45% of its liquid natural gas from Qatar, 25% of the liquid petroleum gas from Qatar. These are the things that light your, homes, and also, CNG gases, compressed natural gases, essentially LNG, I think, and therefore the amount of energy we are getting from Qatar is quite large, and that is one side. The other side is, in the easiest way India can balance its import export equation, assuming all else is the same, is to start getting liquefied natural gas from United States. And I have heard of a proposal that United States has made, and viewers, this is stunning, and this is the first time I'm going to talk about this. There is an island called Monkey Island just off of the coast of Texas, and Trump, it is believed, has offered the use of Monkey Island for India. You can take whatever amount of natural gas you want from there, because that, what it means is, it's like owning something outside of India, but it's completely for your use, because the needs are so high. India cannot afford to be at the vagaries of who comes to power in the United States when it has got drawn up long-term contracts for liquefied natural gas. So Monkey Island is definitely in play. Like that, India also has gotten place or access to liquefied natural gas and crude in Sakhalin Island, and this is way north near Russia. The third thing that India has done is Tanzania. Again, they have got some long-term contracts there. So India is planning for the long run here. Be that so, what I'm trying to say is, India doesn't depend on Qatar as much as it used to, like for example, the Nupur Sharma days. So you think about that. So India is now more stronger, more powerful, and Qatar here needs to sell gas to India rather than the other way around. By the way, the first time Qatar went and tried to sell to China, China's whoever was the Secretary General would not give them the time of the day. The Qatar representative actually stayed for 3 days or 4 days, something like that, before he would be granted an audience by the Chinese. Only then Qatar started, flexing its, well, that's the first time they got a big customer. You understand from there. Today, my curiosity question, Venkatji, I am saying Qatar needs India more than the other way around. Then what was the need for Prime Minister Modi to break protocol to go receive him at the airport?
He should not have done that. And I completely agree with you. I think let's go back to the previous point you made before I answer this question. Whether India needs Qatar or the other way around, who needs the other more? You made a great point about Monkey Island and Sakhalin. And the way I'm seeing is, Trump completely understands, right? So he understands the importance, the geopolitical importance of India for multiple reasons, right? So, like you would have seen, was it yesterday or day before yesterday, when Japan tested its sixth generation or put up the first prototype of its sixth generation fighter aircraft? And obvious to everyone, it's done to counter the Chinese threat, right, in the Pacific and in the Eastern Asian front. So, what Trump wants to do is to make sure that India, Japan, Korea, and Taiwan are all empowered so that China doesn't go rogue, right, on any of these things. So the reason I mentioned all of that is, so Trump would not want Qatar to hold India or any of the allies of Trump to ransom. So even the oil, even the LNG that Qatar is selling to India, I won't be surprised if Trump bundles everything, and then he says, on paper, Qatar has to sell it to America, and America will in turn deliver it to India, so that India could completely eliminate its dependence on Qatar. In a way, that will be very good for. It's a kind of a white labeling. Will be very good for Trump because even to get the oil out of the Gulf coast of the Gulf of America, it's going to take, sorry, the LNG out of the Gulf of America, it's going to take some time, and you have to put together all the contracts with the uh, the ships, the ocean containers to carry all of that back to India. So in the meantime, he can start bundling that, simply white label the Qatari gas, and then get it out to India and go through that. I think that could most probably happen. That's what I'm thinking.
Thank you so much, Venkat. And viewers, one of the things that Venkatji mentioned is about Qatar expressing concerns about Rohingyas and Bangladeshi Muslims sitting in India. Viewers, a lot of things are happening in the last few days, and I'm trying to connect the dots. And this is how the dots are getting connected. India has expelled, at last count, about 35 to 40,000 illegals. These are from Assam. These are also from some areas of Delhi before the elections, and cleanup is happening in Assam now because the elections are there coming up shortly. And it is expected that something similar will be taken up in West Bengal, although there is a, well, we can say some name, KLI at the end, who will jump up and down and do the Nartana. And that is a bigger problem. But at least in Assam, he has a very effective chief minister. So what is happening? Thousands are being pushed back into Bangladesh. Then what is happening? Bangladesh is trying to lash out, go back and seek Hindus, try and see if we can set their houses on fire deep inside Bangladesh, abduct their children. So this is all cause and reaction. On the other side, Modi is also giving them uh, electricity free practically, because they have not paid for it for ages now, and also giving grants of tons of rice. So you see this balancing going on back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. But really, Bangladesh has no choice. It has to get its act together. We don't know where that rascal advisor is sitting right now. And Hillary Clinton herself is in huge trouble because people are saying Chelsea Clinton has made $73 million and she can't account for it. No
Right.
job. How the heck can you make $73 million? What
Clinton
nonsense is
Foundation.
going
That's
on?
money
Yeah,
laundering, straight out money
that's
laundering,
money
right? So
laundering. So,
that's why they're all scared of Pam Bondi, Cash Patel, Tulsi Gabbard, everyone, because the three of them, NIA and the DHS and FBI, can completely crack down on these characters because the presidential foundations are the means to loot money and then get payback and favors from those whom the president obliged in the past. And the Clintons, Obamas, all of these guys are deeply in trouble. And then you mentioned about Bangladesh, and starting on that, Shri Iyer, I think Mohammed Yunus is going to end up in the same boat as Zelensky. Okay, because he'll be sidelined or he'll be deposed. One of these will happen for the simple reason that Mohammed Yunus was part of the deep state network under Biden, Obama, and all of those crooks, and he destabilized the country. He threw out Hasina, and then he has been targeting the Hindus for attack, murder, rape, and the Hindu temples have been targeted. The ISKCON temples in Bangladesh have been targeted. Monks have been arrested. All of this has happened. So there's no love lost. Okay, and then Trump does not like this guy, and he will be deposed very soon. And I think this is where uh, Modi should take a definitive stance like Trump has done. Okay, if you look at the entire campaign, Trump did not make any concession, not a single concession to the Muslims. Okay, even in Michigan, when the Muslim vote could tilt the outcome of the election because they are in large numbers out there, Trump simply went there and then he attended a meeting on the same stage with them, but did not make a single promise like, hey, I will be on your side on the Palestinian issue or I will cut funding to Israel. None of those things. Okay. He pretty firmly took the side of Israel during the campaign, while he was on the campaign trail, after he became president. And then he said, if you guys want to vote, go ahead and vote. If not, I don't care. Okay. I think that is the approach Prime Minister Modi has to take because uh, I always get the feeling he doesn't want to crack down on the Muslims and others who are illegally in India. I'm talking about the Bangladeshi and Rohingya Muslims here. He doesn't want to crack down on them for two or three reasons. One is, I think he seeks external validation, to some extent understandable, because India was a weak nation dealing with a very hostile United States until Trump won the election. Now it's a different story. India is a favored nation, and Trump repeatedly says that Modi is his good friend and he wants to be on the side of India. So today it's a different equation, right? So in the past, Modi couldn't go hammer and tongs against the illegals because the deep state of America was dead against Modi. Okay, and then all these Muslim countries like Qatar could now stoke violence. Pakistan could do the same thing. So that was one reason. But I also do think that Modi seeks a lot of external validation and probably an eye on the Nobel Peace Prize. That's another reason.
He
Uh,
has a very strong contender now in Trump.
yeah, and Trump deserves it. Okay, so
Yes.
because if you are very objective, right? I like Modi. I'm a supporter of Modi only because everybody else is anti-Hindu except BJP and Modi. So even though Modi has not done enough to the Hindus on the cultural front, uh, I would still support him because all the others are jihadis. My apologies. I think uh, uh, Trump, on the other hand, definitely deserves the Nobel Prize because A, he's the only president since Carter who did not start a new war in his first term. Look at the second term, everything that he is doing, peace in Israel, fixing Iran, fixing Russia, Ukraine problem, solidarity with India to neutralize the Chinese threat, everything. He absolutely deserves a Nobel Prize. And I don't think Modi is a true contender, but then he's hopeful of getting it, and or at least he's dreaming of that. But what I would suggest is this is the only golden opportunity and window for India to act because President Trump, in the White House parlay he had with and the press meet he had with Modi on his side, was very explicit. When asked about Bangladesh, he said American deep state does not have a role in it, meaning going forward does not have a role in it. He openly acknowledged that the previous government destabilized uh, Bangladesh, and whereas going forward, Trump wouldn't do that. And Trump explicitly said, emphatically said, that it's Prime Minister Modi is free to do whatever he wants with Bangladesh. So this is the time, I think, for Prime Minister Modi to act, because if you miss this window, you will never get the chance again. So this would be the perfect occasion for him to probably even carve out a portion of Bangladesh and settle all the Hindus there. And then, like you said, uh, cut off everything. That's what Trump did. Even before he came to power, he took office on January 21st. He made it 20th. He made it very clear that he is going to impose tariff. He's going to freeze all the funding. Look how many countries have fallen in line. And Bangladesh is already very unstable. And if he is going to freeze all the funding from tomorrow, not a dime goes to Bangladesh unless they put their troops on the border to block all the illegal immigrants, and they start taking uh, X thousand illegals back every day. Okay, so this is the time to flex muscles because, like Chanakya says, like the Mahabharata also says, the best way to deal with the enemy is to take away his weapons, make him Nirayuda Pani. Okay, that is the message from Mahabharata. So the way you make Bangladesh Nirayuda Pani is by taking away all the funding, cut off electricity, and give a week's notice and say if you don't act within a week, we are cutting off electricity. Trump will be backing India, and India has to do that because that's the only way you can complete all the other things like NRC, Register of Citizens. Without that, you can never block all these illegal votings and illegal crossovers, and then to kick out all the illegal Bangladeshis and Rohingyas in India. This is the only window. I hope Modi will act on it, but fingers crossed.
Thank you so much, Kalame Venkatji. Viewers, we have not got notification on this program. So I'm trying to set up a meeting with YouTube to understand why it's happening. For the past 5-6 days, we are not getting notifications of our programs. So we are kind of hamstrung by that. But you know that any discussion with Kalame Venkat is far more in depth and also looks at things from various angles that you perhaps have not had a chance to look at even. Venkat is a very deep thinker, and I'm not doing Mukhastuti Venkat. I'm telling you because I get a lot of very knowledgeable guests on my program, but your perspective on some of the things is just out of the world. Very mind. See, point of P Gurus is to make people think. Don't read and make up your mind that, oh, this guy said, therefore it must be true. Not anymore, especially in this day and age of
A- and, the-
fake
and,
narratives.
and our viewers do not have to agree with us, right? They can
Yes, you don't have
challenge
to
us,
agree
they
with
can
us.
look
Yes,
at the facts, they can challenge us, and we could be wrong, right? There are times when we could be wrong, and if you come back with a different perspective and say, hey, guys, we heard you, but then things don't work that way. Here is the nuanced perspective. We will absolutely correct our position. So,
absolutely. So we have a second topic to talk about, which is the misconceptions about deportation. Viewers, a small request to all of you who have tuned in. Please like this video, because this part again has not been talked about. It has been kept hush hush. I'll give you the first opening salvo. California spends $8.5 billion, B as in boy, on illegals.
absolutely.
$8.5 billion, a mind-blowing number of dollars. And what is it going to? This is where Kalave Venkat comes in. He talks to us about what is going on in my great state of, I putting great in double quote because it used to be a really nice state. I'm not so sure anymore. Over to you, Venkatji.
Absolutely. So, if you want to bring up that small,
Yeah,
pictorial, I
right
sent
here.
you,
Yeah,
let's talk. But before we go into that, for most of our viewers, especially in India, you would have noticed that the Indian media is repeatedly uh, dealing with the deportation issue. Okay, so just for the background, there are roughly around 27 million illegal immigrants in the United States of America. Just in the last 4 years, under the Biden administration, more than 11.3 illegals invaded the United States of America, which is a crime. And out of those, 13,000, 13,000 of them are convicted rapists who were emptied out of prisons in countries like Venezuela, Colombia, Panama, and a number of other places. More than 15,000, 15,000 murderers who had been convicted, who had been incarcerated in various prisons were emptied out and they were sent into America. This is invasion of the worst order. Okay, no country can afford to have 28,000 mass murderers and rapists roaming around amidst its population. Okay, so this is the crisis America has been facing. This was a crisis manufactured by the Democrats, by the likes of Obama, Nancy Pelosi, Biden, and others. And that's what America is dealing with. So keep that in mind when Trump talks about deportation, it's not an emotional issue, it's a serious problem. Yet, you would have noticed that the Indian media, especially the English speaking media, approaches this problem entirely emotionally and they portray this as something white supremacist or something, hey, Trump has gone anti India and this is going to affect all of the Indians. Before we go into any of the factoids that you are seeing on the screen, let me make one observation very clear. The Indian brand equity, about which Shriyar and I have talked on a number of occasions before, but I'll just reiterate that briefly for a few seconds. The Indian brand equity was built with phenomenal effort from Indians. So these are the engineers, the doctors, IITians, IIM grads, everyone who came out of India in the late 70s, mid 70s, 80s, and the 90s. They came to the United States. And remember, India at that time was a socialist country, not at all rich. And even the IITs were not comparable to the universities in America at that time in terms of infrastructure and everything. But what our people had was intelligence. They were very conscientious and they were willing to work extremely hard and innovate for America. So they came to the US, they did their masters, they did their PhD, they worked for American tech companies and labs like Xerox Labs, NASA, Microsoft, and all these companies, and they built the Indian brand equity. Americans saw that. So American corporations like Shri Iyer would know this really well, and most of you viewers would also know that American corporations are very impersonal. Okay, they are focused only on the margins, the profit margins, and how to generate wealth. They don't operate emotionally. So why did they choose to send so many of the jobs to India, set up captives in India, and set up joint ventures in India, outsource work to India, IT work, business process work, banking work, even R&D work in recent years? It was because they observed the Indians who came to India, came to the US from 70s onwards, and they thought these are brilliant chaps and they are very law abiding. You don't find any Indian committing crime. and then they are very cultured, very civilized, and then more importantly, they are conscientious, and then if you give them work, they will deliver it. So if these guys are like that, then their counterparts back in India should be very good. And that's how India got all this. So every high-paying job you're seeing in India today, the banking job, the IT job, consulting job, and all of these things, they are thanks to the brand equity the NRIs built over the last 4 or 5 decades. And it's very easy to destroy this brand equity when illegal immigrants from India invade United States of America. And by various estimates, there are 10 lakhs or 1 million illegal Indians residing in the United States of America. And this brings bad name to us because just think of it for a minute. How many software companies like Google or Facebook would go to Pakistan or Bangladesh and make an investment and even hire 5 people, even if those countries gave away everything for free, land for free, building for free, tax holiday for the next 20 years? No, nobody will go there because building that brand equity takes a lot of time and destroying it takes a minute. Okay, that's one reason why we should never sympathize with illegal immigrants, even if they happen to be fellow Indians, because they are destroying India's brand equity. And it not only affects the NRIs living here, it also affects India because tomorrow these companies won't be going back to India and investing. And even today, you can see that not a single multinational is investing in Punjab. Okay, the reason for that is a large number of illegals have come from Punjab. Khalistani problem exists, and then they blockade the streets, highways. Nobody wants that. Okay, now, let's turn to some of the facts here, and then we'll come back and say why the Indian media is flipping the facts on its head. I'm not going to go over every one of those, but then look at, for example, point number 6, 39%. That's 40% of the California students are illegal immigrants into this country. I don't even want to use the word immigrants, they are invaders. Okay, this invasion by other means. And this is something, Shreya and I both live in San Francisco, and then we know this. Uh, there is something called the feeder system in the American academy and schools. Okay, so every university has a set of feeder schools. So if you take something like the University of California, every campus will have some kind of an unspoken quota for different schools, right, from various districts. And now this in turn ensures that the percentage of students coming from or proportionally represented from these various school districts, okay, to some extent. And now, when 40% are illegals coming into the schools, then it also means 40% of students in University of California are illegals. Okay, and we pay a phenomenal amount of tax, property tax for sustaining schools, high schools from K to 12, and then we pay a huge amount of tax to sustain the public universities like the University of California. And then it's absolutely unreasonable and unfair that 40% of those seats should be given away illegally to these illegal immigrants to this country who have not paid for it, and then who have not created the endowment which we have created, and now we have to support them further. That's absolutely unacceptable. Okay, and just to put this in context, if any of you still thinks emotionally or approaches the subject emotionally, I have this offer to make you. I am willing to send 3 Bangladeshi or Rohingya illegal Muslims living in India to your home as guests. They'll be living there. You can choose between Rohingyas and Bangladeshis if you want. I'll send just 3 of them. You have to feed them. You have to provide them housing. Okay. And then they may commit crime and you have to put up with that. And then you have to pay for their medical. You have to pay for their college education, everything. And you should also provide them a car because they like to drive luxury cars. Okay. That's what America is doing. Every illegal is provided $400 per week per person. Okay, and then if you're a big family, you will get, if you have 4 or 5 children, then you will get almost $10,000 a month, non-taxable. And that's why most of those people lead a very comfortable life and they participate in protests. And the reason I made that offer about Bangladesh and Rohingyas is that none of you will take up that offer. So you should not expect NRIs or Americans to uh, tolerate illegal immigrants in this country. Okay, that's why we should approach these problems like Chanakya did, like Vyasa does in Mahabharata, and not emotionally. That's a very dumb way of approaching the problem. Emotion, that is to approach it emotionally. Now, let's focus for a minute on why is that Indian media is indulging in this propaganda. To understand this, you should go back to the deep state. Just last week on the Joe Rogan podcast, and for the benefit of those who do not know who Joe Rogan is, he is the world's #1 podcaster. He has the biggest following. And for example, when he interviewed Donald Trump during the campaign trail, uh, the live audience was what, like 30 or 40 million people, right? So I don't remember the viewers at that was a live audience. Okay, that's the numbers he got. So he interviewed Mike Benz last week. And Mike Benz is a former Department of State official who divulges a lot of information. And there was one input he gave. He said the deep state through US AID was funding 5,000 media outlets around the world and 9,000 journalists from around the world. These people have been paid ton of money, okay, tens of millions of dollars. And I think yesterday Trump disclosed that $2.7 billion was routed to India over the last few years for such nefarious activities. So all of these journalists have been on the payroll of the deep state of United States. Under Obama, they were under the payroll of the US deep state under Biden, and many of them are paying back by echoing the democratic storyline and portraying this as, oh, uh, Hindustani log pura khatre mein hai, all the Indians are in trouble because Trump is kicking them out. No, Trump is not kicking out the Indians. In fact, Trump has made it very clear, Elon Musk has made it very clear, Vivek Ramaswamy has made it very clear that they want the best and the brightest of talent from around the world to come to India. They don't want any
To US,
aliens. That's
to
it.
US.
To the US, sorry, not to India, to US. And they have very specifically stated that they want a lot of Indians to come here, okay, and then work here. And if you recall, one of the offers that Trump made right up front was, if you are going to invest a few $1 million, then he will extend green cards to a lot of folks right away. And in every sense, Trump is favorable to India. And this is not a campaign against India. This is not a campaign against Indians. And if you ask any Indian American who is living here in the United States, we would all tell you this is a fantastic place to live in. And Trump administration is the most welcoming administration, and we are not in trouble. And Indians also should not get misled by the leftist media propaganda. They are indulging that propaganda because they have got paid by the deep state. Like I mentioned, 9,000 journalists. We don't know how many of them are from India, but we can be sure a substantial number of them are from India, and they are stoking this kind of misinformation because they are on the payroll. Ignore that, but remember, there is a very, very good reason why India should support deportations in America, because Trump has reciprocated. He has said he can do whatever you want with Bangladesh. This is as openly as he could say, you can now deport all the illegals from India. And India has more illegals by various estimates. We don't know the exact number, right? So, because many of them have been given ration card and other things, but by all estimates, anywhere from 5 to 15 crore. Okay, that is 50 to 150 million. Okay, illegals living in India. That's a massive population. Okay, we cannot afford that. And we have to kick them out of India. We have to deport them. And only by supporting American deportation and by learning lessons from that and by getting Trump's endorsement, India too could accomplish the same end result. And that's why Indians should not get misled by the leftist media on all this propaganda against illegals, because illegals are not someone you want to sympathize with. Like we pointed out, many of them, every one of them is a criminal. Okay, entering a country illegally is a crime, and then many of them have committed heinous crimes like murder, rape, and other things, and they are a drain on the economy. Why should hardworking people who have been paying tax for 20 years, 30 years of their working career be penalized while these illegals are treated like royalty? We should not tolerate that, whether it's India, whether it's America. Back to you, Sri.
Thank you so much, Venkat. Viewers, a lot of things are coming down the pipeline in the next few days. So things are going to be a little bit topsy-turvy because there's going to be a fair amount of discontent among people. I'll tell you simple examples. Many people who have multiple homes in India, in the United States, and I don't begrudge them for that. Many people have multiple homes in the United States, and they have let out their homes to the government because the government in turn was housing illegals there. Guess what has happened? Pam Bondi has announced yesterday all the funding towards illegal is cut. Zero. It's come from a big number to zero. Okay, so what is going to happen is the government will not be able to pay for illegals who have taken your second home and you are paying the EMI in case you have still got a loan on it, but you're not going to get your rental income. Worse, they may not be able to take them out right away because the only 30,000 have been evicted so far. What Pam Bondi has said again and again, and Trump has reiterated this: if you are caught and deported, then the chances of your ever coming back to US, zero. They are basically telling you, you need to leave. You know you are illegal, you need to leave. And people are not going to listen to that. I know that too. But if you are a second homeowner, and if you are housing, you have given it to the government to house illegals, you are going to be in a lot of pain because you will still be ending up paying up EMI, but your income is up in air. That is cut. I mean, it's like a knife that has come down and cut through the whole thing. I mean, 8.5 billion, give me a break. What the hell is going on in California? I mean, we are paying through that 40-50% rise in insurance of every name. And then if home insurance doesn't cover fire, it doesn't cover earthquake, then what does it cover? Yeah, you want to say something?
Oh no, I lost a train of thought. No, keep going, keep going. That's okay.
Yeah. So no worries.
Oh, sorry.
So
No, no, I was going to say that there is something else a lot of Indians may not be aware of. It's called title fraud, right? Which does happen in the
yes,
US. And unless otherwise people have put their property and title in a trust, there are ways by which scams could be committed. And there is a huge danger in renting out your house to illegals, even when you do it through the government, because these illegals have committed serious crime. Think of it. What kind of person would abandon his family back in India or Mexico or Panama or Venezuela and walk through this donkey route and then go through the cartels and enter the US by committing a crime and then live under the radar for years and not even see his family? So these are criminals. These are people with no scruples and a criminal bent of mind. And if you think they wouldn't be tempted to steal the title of your house, then you are sadly mistaken. Okay, so this is going to happen, and this is going to happen in large numbers even in India, and at least in the US, the law and order and the judiciary is reasonably good, and you could go to the court and hope to get some justice. In India, you don't even have that available. So if you have some property and then if you're tempted to rent it out to Bangladeshis and Rohingyas who are in India illegally, then be warned, you are never going to get it back.
thank you so much, Venkatji. And now let's take a few questions, if you don't mind. We'll try to wrap it up in about 20 minutes time. Let's take the questions now. Thank you, Jyotishmati ji, for becoming a YouTube member. Thank you, the Lakshman 2010, for becoming a YouTube member. Thank you, Sanjal, for your sticker. Venkat Ranga wants to know, investment is welcome. What isn't is interference in international matters, especially emotional issues. We need to respond to such issues suitably. In case of Qatar, did Bharat do that?
Earlier not, because like Shri Ayer correctly pointed out, 45% of India's natural gas comes from Qatar. Okay, so second, mm, that's always the fear, right? You know, the like during the CAA protests and other things, NRC and other things, there's always the fear that Qatar has the money backing and could activate the sleeper cells and cause more trouble to India. And India is not a police state. Okay, the truth be told, except the CRPF and other central forces, the local police don't have even any weapons. Okay, so they go around with lathi and other things and some outdated rifles. You cannot contain mobs with those things. So there was a bit of fear with that, but completely agree with that. So the problem is there, but then the challenge is uh, international diplomacy and polity is not based on emotions. It's based on what is beneficial to you at a given point in time and in the near future. Okay, so as far as Qatar is concerned, Qatar was earlier wagging its tail because it could. Now it will not because Trump doesn't want it to.
Next one, please. Krishnamurti Hunagund wants to know, is India doing what is India doing to explore its own oil and gas reserves?
I don't think there's a lot of oil and gas reserve in India. I could be wrong. There's a little bit of the Gulf of Cambay and other places, and but there's not enough. And even if there is enough, even if there is some oil reserve, some small pocket, uh, you know, uh, drilling and getting it out is going to be a very expensive proposition. So that's the reason, the big rigs and the companies that drive those initiatives like Schlumberger and others have not really invested a lot in India. Okay, so those people are, right on top of every exploration possibility, and they have not done it. So no, I don't think India should waste its time exploring oil and gas. Instead, uh, align with US and get oil and gas through US. And frankly, I think Trump will let Russia get back into G8 and allow Russia to also sell oil, but it will be done. It will be overall underwritten by the United States under the aegis of Trump. So Qatar, Russia, and everyone would have to get a soft nod from Trump to sell oil to India, which is good for India. India should take that. The area where India should focus on is in alternate energy, especially green energy, especially solar energy. Okay. So today, the reality is, in spite of imposing tariff on Chinese solar panels, the imported panels from China are 40% cheaper than the locally manufactured panels in India. Okay. And this is a serious problem we have to address because why are the Indian panels more expensive, even though the imported ones are paying a huge tariff? Okay, the reasons are multifold. A, the Indian labor force is not skilled. Okay, so which means you have to hire a lot of people to do the same amount of work which Chinese could do with a fewer resources. Then number two, we don't have the economies of scale. Okay, so at the end of the day, economies of scale and the way you mobilize your working capital is going to drive the financial advantage you get out of any system. And India has to build those scale because it has not been a manufacturing base. And then third reason is the culture of freebies. Okay, so you keep throwing a lot of freebies at people, they are not going to work. And to do a little bit of work, they will come and demand exorbitant price. To give a simple example, take taxis or auto rickshaws. Go back 25, 30 years. Okay, go back in the 90s. You probably paid more for a taxi or auto rickshaw in 1999 or 2000 than you're paying for Uber or Ola today in India. Okay, the same true in the US too, right? So,
Why?
uh, so the reason for that is, when you are not throwing freebies at people, and when you're not, feeding the monsters called unions who can hold you to ransom and extract the Shylock's pound of flesh, what will happen is the prices will start coming down. And that's what China has accomplished, and India has to accomplish the same. I think that's the area which India should focus on the technology, you know, converting solar energy to power. And eventually, we have to increase our power consumption by an order of magnitude, okay? Because AI is going to require a lot of power, okay? And all the emerging technologies are going to require a lot of power. So all of that means India should invest in this alternate sources of energy. But that's not going to completely replace fossil fuel. So for the next couple of decades, rely upon the United States while you're standing up the alternatives. That's my thinking.
Just to add to what Venkatji said, India has some deposits offshore. And for drilling offshore deposits, you need technology like the latest drilling technology. Only United States and a few Western European nations have it. And for all that stuff, for them to come in and do it, they will need some sort of a guarantee, sovereign guarantee, that will make sure, because it's a 10-year, 20-year gestation project, and the return on investment is going to be long term, not short term. So a lot of these things are there, and India needs to give that stable undertaking for them to feel good about it. So this is not so easy in the short term, like taking up deals like the Monkey Island or Sakhalin Island. In fact, if I remember correctly, in Sakhalin Island, what happened, Venkatji, was that it was one third, one third, one third Japan, India, and US. And in 2022, when Russia invaded Ukraine, US withdrew its 33%. And I believe it was split between India and Japan and Russia evenly, or something of that nature. I have to go back and check. I did one monologue on that. So India does have a fair amount of stake in Sakhalin Island. But for India to get the crude from there, it has to go through Taiwan Strait. You see how dependency starts going up. I don't think it is online yet. It will be sometime soon. but it needs to get it through the Taiwan Strait. So now suddenly you are also concerned about China's belligerent attitude towards Taiwan. And the reason why it has to go through the strait and not around Taiwan is because around Taiwan, the seas are a lot more choppier. And you're talking about crude. You want very, very stable sea. So the navigation is simple. If you have a capsize of a oil tanker on high seas, huge problems. So there are lots of things of this nature that need to be considered. As of now, whenever they get a deal like the Monkey Island deal, they should take it and de-emphasize their need on Qatar. In my opinion, Qatar has already shown its fangs. They bared their fangs in that Nupur Sharma case. You can give whatever explanation. Qatar can say, oh no, US asked us to do it. You should have not done it. There are consequences. So anyway, this is just my thing. I'm doing some plain speaking here. I'm not a diplomat. And this is where things stand.
I think you made some absolutely great points. Just to add to that, you know, for starting from 1947, under the disastrous rule of Nehru and the Congress government, all the way until Narasimha Rao came in the mid 90s, India ruined itself by being a socialist economy, right? So, just to set things in context, if you go back to 1960 or 1961, the Indian and Chinese GDP was almost comparable. I think India was $42 billion and China was what 45 or 46, right? Very comparable. Okay, so whereas today India is a $4 trillion economy and China is 21 trillion, fivefold. Okay, so what happened was. In the interregnum, starting from the 70s, rather even 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s, China was racing ahead. They were making investments in their universities, in their manufacturing base, infrastructure, training the people, getting the skill levels up significantly. Because China has this culture of 996, 9 to 9, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., 6 days a week. People have to work. Okay. And then they have all these things like 985 and 211 and all these things, plans for upgrading their universities, which they have been doing for almost 30 years now. So China invested heavily. China built capitalist, capitalistic oligarchies, okay, within the country. So that attracted investment. India, on the other hand, was destroyed by Congress for a good 50, 60 years when they would run the country as a socialist hellhole and not allow any investments to come in. So the first change was made by Narasimha Rao, but in full swing was made by Prime Minister Modi when he started building infrastructure, started attracting investments and everything. So we should, uh, go hammer and tongs and align ourselves with America, attract investment, and then our goal should be how do we double, triple our GDP and become a credible counterbalancing force to China. So aligning with America is the need of the hour, especially because Trump is the president now.
Thank you so much. Next question, please. Sanjay PR wants to know, Venkatji and Sriyaji, sir, please do talk about these infants who are butchered. They need justice. 21st February, birthday of the mother, the Jai Hind, Jai Bharat. I think he's talking about Israel.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and I think was it yesterday or day before yesterday that
Day before
uh,
yesterday, right?
yeah, that baby that Kafir, it's spelled as KFIR, KFIR. Uh, he was he 6 or 7 months old baby, okay, less than 8 months
Yeah,
old when
yeah.
he was abducted. His family was slaughtered. He was abducted, and some of you may remember the disgusting, revolting, puke-worthy videos the Hamas released when those Hamas terrorists are holding this baby as if you are an uncle or cha-cha or somebody who's actually coaxing the baby and giving that baby a bit of love. It was a disgusting video. They showed that, okay, and then that baby never made it back home because day before yesterday, they returned the body of the child. The child would have been 2 now had he returned alive. Okay, so absolutely yes, because uh, you know um, we our thoughts are entirely with the Israelis, entirely with the Jews, and I have been unapologetic about this, and Shreyer has been also same, and we have talked about this on a few occasions. There is no country called Palestine, and there has never been a country called Palestine. Okay, it's nothing but a delusion. It's called the Palestine delusion. That's the phrase a few others have used, like, Mohab and the others have used that phrase. Sorry, Mossab and others have used that phrase. And then uh, we cannot tolerate this. And in the entire Middle East, there is only one civilized country, that is Israel. And then any suffering of the Israelis deserves our sympathy and our solidarity. And I'm entirely with them.
Next one, please. Giri wants to know existent threat to Tamil by Hindi, then is foreign. I think this is out of the syllabus. Let's not touch this one. Let's go to the next one, please. Sorry about that, Giri. Manoj, we have a lot of questions to cover. Manoj Soma wants to know, can we expect a partnership between USA, India, Israel? A strong covalent bond between would be good for the world. USA must be more, should be more towards India like it was with UK. Your view, sir?
It is. It is, I think. Already, Trump is making all those moves pretty explicitly. And also, if you recall, during the White House press meet uh, jointly held by Trump and Modi, Trump made a very interesting observation. Between 2020 and 2024, Modi was constantly in touch with Trump. Okay, so and Modi never abandoned Trump, and Trump is not a person who will forget those good things. And there's an excellent bond between Trump and Modi, and there is an excellent relationship between India and United States. And I think this is good for the world simply because Trump does not want wars. Trump wants trade. Okay, and Trump wants to promote the India, Middle East, Europe corridor because that's the only way to get rid of terrorism and then increase the wealth of the nations. And he wants to do that. And that's the same idea Prime Minister Modi is having. That's a good reason why Modi invested in infrastructure for the last 11 years. Okay. Uh, Numerous publications, starting with Thomson Reuters and others, have highlighted this. This is singularly great achievement. Okay, from around the world. Okay, and hence this is the time to capitalize on all of those things. You have the infrastructure. You have two leaders, the Prime Minister of India and the President of US, who are well aligned. And notice one more thing: Trump talked about tariff, but he has not officially imposed it on India. Okay, so this is the most important thing, right? So instead, he made a little bit of noise, but then worked with Modi behind the scene. They worked on strategic things. So I think those are all very, very positive signs. And the focus should be to partner with the United States, bring in the best of the technology from the US to India, and then generate wealth, increase employment, and most importantly, crack down on illegals and Islamic extremism and everything, and save the country. So the Americans have woken up, right? So if you watch this election, uh, America underwent a complete 180-degree shift, zero tolerance for illegal immigration, all the gender propaganda and DEI initiatives and all those things. That's why Trump was able to throw those out overnight. And India is saddled with the same problems. And a partnership with the US would be great because you can now start addressing these with the support of the US and also to keep the opposition in check. All of them have black money, laundered money, and Trump can have them with a scruff of the neck and make those monkeys dance to his tune if they go against Modi. So I think partnership is very much needed.
Manoj Soma wants to know, could you please throw some light on unified pension scheme, sir? Please make a separate video on it. Hope you will catch it. Hope you will do it. We'll take a look at it, definitely. Saraswati Serene wants to know, India should not do business with these monsters. Why is Modi making deals with the Mideast, practically giving away Kashmir to them through business deals? Does anyone understand Modi's mindset?
So we could also, Krishna could have very well said, right? Sri Krishna in the Mahabharata and the Bhagavad Gita could have very well said that Duryodhana and the entire Kauravas are adharmic, and hence let's not have even a word of discussion with them. He did not say that. Instead, what he did was uh, he tried everything. He tried diplomacy first. He tried concessions next. When nothing worked, finally the Kurukshetra war. Okay, so because at the end of the day, there is something called pragmatism. There is something called reality we have to deal with. Okay, just imagine for a minute. Shri Ayer mentioned about India getting 45% of its gas from Qatar. Okay, and tomorrow, if that is cut by even 10%, okay, look at the kind of disruption you'll face in India. Okay, so your LPG gas cylinder or even for industrial production, which you take for granted, will stop. When it stops, it's going to obstruct India's economic growth, unemployment will ensue, and inflation will go through the roof. Okay, that's why we know very well that many of these countries are monsters, but the way to tackle them has to be from a position of strength. Okay, so as India gets stronger, these monstrous countries of the Middle East or Pakistan or Bangladesh, they will all fall in line. Okay, and then the second thing is, don't also forget one more thing. Okay, look at Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia was the sponsor of Wahhabi terrorism for decades. But MBS has started changing it. He has completely inverted most of the things. Now, in Saudi Arabia, in schools, they are teaching the Bhagavad Gita, they are teaching yoga, they are teaching Ramayana, and all of these things. Okay. And they are not teaching uh, Islam or the Quran in most of the schools. Okay. That's the new initiative from MBS. So, if Saudi Arabia could change, then Qatar and the rest of the Middle Eastern countries could change also. So, don't close the door, deal with them from a position of strength, like Krishna did, but also leave the door open for them to change and fall on the side of Dharma. Because at the end of the day, if not for Dharma, they will fall in line out of fear of the United States or out of the desire to make money from the India, Middle East, Europe corridor.
Thank you so much, Venkatji, and wonderful, wonderful session today. Viewers, I hope you got a wealth of information. We are looking at things from different angles, and like we said, that you don't have to take our word for it, but at least we are forcing you to think slightly differently from what the mainstream thought is. Thanks once again, Venkatji. We'll be seeing you again in a couple of weeks' time. First Wednesday on Tamil, and next 2 weeks from now, Friday on English. Thank you. Namaskar.
Namaskar and thank you.